I had just buried my husband, the only man who had ever loved me unconditionally, when his family threw a huge party, laughing, dancing, and toasting as if nothing had happened. Not a word of condolence. Not a hug. Not a sympathetic glance. Just music from the living room, the clinking of glasses, and cold laughter echoing while my heart shattered in the bedroom just a few feet away. They didn't just forget my husband. They deliberately forgot me. From the mother-in-law who always disdainfully told me, it's okay to have him or not, to the sister-in-law who said behind my back she was only with him for his money, they all proved one thing. My husband's death wasn't enough to stop them from having an evening of entertainment for themselves. They chose that moment. They chose to laugh at my pain. They chose to trample on my husband's memory with dancing and clinking glasses. But they forgot one important thing. I was not just a grieving widow. I was the one my husband trusted with all his power, his assets, and his ultimate responsibility. And when I opened the safe and read every line of the will they thought they would inherit, I knew exactly what to do. They wanted a funeral party? Fine. I would show them what it means to disregard the pain of others. Welcome to Judgy Tales, where real stories, real emotions, and fair judgments come alive. Today you will hear a story that is both sad and painful but also powerful and retributive. It is the story of a woman who was betrayed by her husband's family in her weakest moment, and how she rose up and took back everything that was rightfully hers, little by little. What if the only one left crying was left among the laughing ones? What would you do if the people closest to you disappeared when you needed them the most? Stay tuned till the end of the story because I'm sure you'll want to leave a long comment after hearing all the truth. My name is Sarah, 42 years old, living in a small town in Virginia. I am a nurse and have been happily married for 17 years to Mark, a wonderful and devoted husband. Our life was simple but loving until Mark was diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer. Everything changed from then on. Mark was the pillar not only for me but also for his family, his mother, Elaine, and his two younger siblings, Karen and Daniel. Since his father passed away, Mark has shouldered all the responsibilities, helping his mother pay off debt, sending his younger sister to college, and supporting his younger brother in starting a business. Although I was always there for him, his family never accepted me. His mother-in-law considered me an outsider, always crediting Mark's success to her. Every holiday I did everything but was never treated as a real member. Karen looked down on me for being too normal, and Daniel was silent, never defending me. When Mark was sick, I quit my part-time job to care for him every hour. While I did everything, my mother-in-law and siblings only stopped by to see him for show. Karen even took a picture with Mark for Instagram. When Mark died, I took care of the funeral arrangements. They just picked out the burial clothes and left quickly. I had never felt so alone. Less than a month later, I found out they had thrown Daniel a birthday party at Mark's old house, without telling me. I was hurt, angry, and betrayed. When I went back to the old house to get the papers, I found Mark's will. In it, he left all his assets to me with a note. I won't leave you alone. Don't let them take anything. They don't deserve it. I knew. It was time for me to stand up, not only to keep what Mark left, but also to demand justice after so many years of being ignored. The morning after I discovered the will Mark had left me, I sat in the empty living room, holding the crumpled but still clearly written paper. My mind was in turmoil between grief and anger. Not only was I grieving for my husband's death, but I was also struggling to accept a harsh truth. My in-laws had not only neglected me, but had deliberately excluded me from what had once been a part of Mark. I decided to do the first thing. Take a copy of the will to Mark's lawyer, Richard Graham. He was the one who had helped my wife and I with our real estate documents many years ago. When I arrived at the office, Mr. Graham recognized me immediately. I handed him the copy and he read it silently. His old eyes blinked slightly, then he said, "We need to check the original to confirm, but if this is the last one Mark signed, then all assets, including the house, savings accounts, and shares in the family company, belong to you." I could hardly believe my ears. Shares in the family business? I had no idea Mark still held that. In fact, his family had never mentioned it for years. They had always acted as if he had been removed. Attorney Graham told me to check the will in a week and notify the heirs. During that time I said nothing to anyone. I went home, carefully put the will back in the safe, then went upstairs and looked around the bedroom Mark and I had shared. Everything was still there, from the watch he wore to the novel he had unfinished reading. That evening, I received a text message from Karen. We're having a family meeting this weekend at Mom's. Please come over to discuss the division of the estate and what's left of Mark. No questions. No belated condolences. Just division of assets. I didn't answer, but I came. Not to argue but to confront. Elaine's house, my mother-in-law, was still the same, elegant, neat and cold. When I walked in, all eyes were on me. Karen, her blonde hair neatly combed, was busy arranging flowers on the table. Daniel sat on the sofa, his phone in his hand. Elaine looked up at me through her glasses, her eyes unable to hide her annoyance. Sarah, I think you should understand Mark is my son and everything he has comes from this family. We will divide it equally, fairly. She began. I sat down gently, put the file on the table and opened it. Mark updated his will. This is a notarized copy, signed at Graham's law office a month before he died. In it he left everything to me. The air immediately froze. Karen sneered. How do you know I didn't force him to write this when he was still weak? Or did you take advantage of him? I didn't react. Instead, I gave them a copy and said, Mark's lawyer will verify. If you have any doubts, just hire your own lawyer. 3 days later, a formal meeting was held at Mr. Graham's office. He confirmed the legitimacy of the will. Elaine, Karen, and Daniel couldn't do anything. I was the only legal heir. From the house they were living in, Mark's personal assets, to the shares in the company, it was all mine now. I knew they wouldn't accept it easily. And it was true. Karen started posting ambiguous posts on social media, claiming that I was a bad wife, an outside heir. Elaine tried to file a lawsuit in court, but there was no evidence to support them. Daniel called me, his voice softer. Can you give us a share? I mean, at least Mom's share. She's old. I was silent for a few seconds, then replied, Mark decided what was fair. I respect that. From there I began to change. I moved back into the old house, where they had hosted parties when I was in mourning. I had it completely renovated. I removed the colorful decorations Karen had chosen, replacing them with wedding photos of me and Mark, our own memories. I cut off all the financial support that had been secretly provided to them through Mark. The company accounts were now under my control, and I didn't mind cutting back on the emotional expenses that had been secretly flowing into their pockets. I also met with the board of directors of the company, where Mark had invested when he was young. They were surprised to learn that I was the heir, but when I presented the documents they had to accept. At first they thought I would sell the shares. But no. I studied. I hired a financial advisor, read all the documents and started attending meetings. I wasn't just the deceased shareholder's wife. I was the owner. My presence made a lot of people uncomfortable, including Daniel, who also worked in business development. I didn't fire him. I did something else. I transferred him to a less powerful department where he was forced to report directly to me. Karen lost her cosmetics contract because I refused to renew her sponsorship. Mark had quietly supported her to maintain her influencer image. Now he didn't. Everything that had been their foundation, money, power, relationships, crumbled little by little. I didn't retaliate by screaming or cursing. I just did what Mark wanted, to protect what he left behind and not let anyone abuse his love again. And then one morning I received a handwritten letter from Elaine. Sarah, I was wrong. Not about Mark, but about you. I used to think you were an outsider. But the truth is, you were the one who stood by Mark until the end. You loved him, you cared for him, and now you protect him. Me. I only know how to ask. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I just want to say thank you for loving my son. Elaine. I sat with that letter for a long time. My tears fell not because of pain but because maybe finally Mark was at peace. I did the right thing. That morning, as I sat alone in the quiet living room, my hands shaking as I held the will that smelled of new paper, everything seemed to be falling apart around me. I still couldn't quite believe what was happening. Part of me wanted to deny that the will was real, that it was just a mistake or a cruel joke of fate. But every word, every bold ink mark on that piece of paper was like a challenge, an undeniable truth. The fortune Mark had spent his life building now belonged to me. I, the wife his family had once ignored, despised, even considered a stranger. My heart was filled with mixed emotions: pain, anger, disappointment, and helplessness. I asked myself, why? How could they be so heartless? Why was it that during Mark's illness I was the only one there to take care of him, while they threw happy parties, laughed non-stop? Loneliness was like a raging wave rolling in my heart. Every second that passed, every heavy breath made me feel like my heart was being squeezed. But in that pain, a thought began to form more clearly than ever. I could not fall. I had to stand up. Not only for myself but also for Mark. The person who believed in me, loved me until the very last moment. I remembered the days with Mark. The days without the halo of work or fame, just the two of us sharing all the joys and sorrows, building a small home together. Mark once told me that family is not just those who are related by blood, but those who truly care and stand by you when you need them. Yet his family left me alone in the middle of the storm. That betrayal stung like 1,000 knives stabbing my heart. I wondered, did they ever truly love Mark like I did? When I decided to take the will to Mark's lawyer, Mr. Graham, I felt a certain strength. He was the only person I could trust at the moment. Hearing him confirm the legality of the will, I felt both relieved and extremely nervous. I knew the battle ahead was long and challenging. I needed to prepare myself for hostility, harsh words, and isolation. But inside me, a small flame still burned. A flame of determination and faith that justice would be on my side. That first family meeting at my mother-in-law's house was a painful memory that I will never forget. I walked into the room with a pounding heart, knowing full well that I was facing a wall of suspicion and resistance. Karen looked at me with contempt, as if I were an uninvited intruder. Daniel was silent, his eyes cold, unable to hide his defiance. Elaine, my mother-in-law who had once looked down on me, sat there with a stiff expression, her eyes sharp as if she wanted to read every thought in my head. I remember clearly the feeling when I placed the will on the table and read out loud each line, proving that Mark had changed his will, and that his assets were entirely for me. The air in the room seemed to freeze, the harsh words, the probing questions gradually turned into a stifling silence. Karen began to smirk, saying sarcastic things about me forcing Mark to do this when he was weak. But I did not respond, I just looked at them with a steadfast gaze and confidence built on truth and the law. During the following days I told myself to stay calm, even though my heart was boiling to the point of being uncontrollable. I knew they would not give up easily, would try by all means to take back what they considered right in their own way. But I did not allow myself to be defeated. Every night I still stay up late to reread documents, learn about my rights and prepare for each confrontation that I began to control every aspect of Mark's estate, from the management of the house to the management of his stake in the company. My first move was to cut off the advertising funding that Mark had been quietly providing to Karen. I knew that Karen relied heavily on that support to maintain her high-profile image, and this would anger her. Indeed, she immediately responded with vicious social media posts, deliberately smearing me as greedy, a mistress, and other vitriolic words. But I chose not to respond, letting my silence and actions speak for me. As for Daniel, who had looked down on me and always acted like he had power, I decided to move him to a less important position in the company, where he would report directly to me. This move was a surprise blow that caused Daniel to lose his confidence in the upper hand he had always had. I saw in his eyes both disappointment and defiance. But I was not afraid to confront him because I knew that this was the time to assert the power and respect I deserved. In my most tiring moments, when the pain still lingered, I asked myself, am I turning into a different person, cold and hard like they used to treat me? But then I remembered Mark, remembered his words about fairness and honesty. I did not retaliate with hatred but with steadfastness and dignity. I fought not only to regain my property, but also to protect Mark's love and honor and my own. One day when Elaine sent me a handwritten letter, I could not hold back my tears. The words were full of honesty and repentance as a testament to the change, the final recognition of my place in Mark's life. Sarah, I was wrong. You were the one who loved and protected my son to the end. That message was not just an apology, but also an acknowledgement of everything I had done, everything I had endured. Now I am no longer the weak, abandoned wife, but the one who stands on my own 2 feet, the one who protects Mark's legacy and love with my own inner strength and unshakable determination. I know that this fight is not over and I still have a lot of work to do. But I am proud that I have walked through the most brutal challenges with dignity and a heart full of love. As soon as the news of the official inheritance was confirmed, a wave of turmoil spread, not only in my family but also in the surrounding community. Every day was a new challenge. I thought that when I had all the assets and the right to manage, everything would be easier, but the truth was not. It was just the beginning of a long and arduous journey. I still remember the feeling of sitting alone in the large living room, where Mark's laughter and voice once echoed. Now only the terrifying silence remained. Every corner of the house reminded me of sweet memories mixed with pain. Many times I wondered, was the decision to stand up and fight the right thing, when the loss and hurt had not yet subsided? However, I knew I could not fall down now. Mark did not have the chance to fight for our future, so I had to do it for him. With the strength of love and loyalty to his memory, I was determined to move on. As for my husband's family, their reactions were much more complicated and multifaceted than I had imagined. Elaine, my mother-in-law, was a powerful and conservative person, initially acting tough, constantly trying to put pressure and sue. She tried to use every possible means to dispute her interests, from hiring her own lawyer to trying to influence other shareholders in the company. But I had prepared in advance. With the help of Attorney Graham and the legal team, I refuted all baseless accusations, stood my ground and protected my legitimate rights. Elaine's coldness and hostility hurt me, but also motivated me to persevere. I understood that she had not only lost her son but also felt replaced by me, and the feeling of losing power made her stubborn. I don't resent her, I just hope that one day she will understand and accept. Karen, my sister-in-law, chose the path of public confrontation. She spread harsh social media posts, sarcastic comments, and even untrue rumors. At first, I was very hurt by those words, feeling isolated and betrayed. But then I realized that it was just her way of trying to maintain her position in the family and society. I decided not to respond on social media. Instead, I spent my time focusing on my own development, strengthening my position in the company, and building more positive relationships with my supporters. I believe that true success and personal growth are the most convincing answers to those attacks. Mark's younger brother, Daniel, seems to be the one who was most affected by this change. He used to be someone who had high expectations of inheriting and maintaining power in the company. When I appeared and took on that role, he felt pushed aside and disrespected. There were times when Daniel came to me with a tone that was both suggestive and suggestive, wanting me to share part of the assets with my mother and family members. But I firmly refused, not because I didn't love them, but because this was Mark's last wish and I had to respect that. Meetings with Daniel were not always easy. There were heated arguments, moments of suffocating tension. But I tried to stay calm, listen and explain. I didn't want the family to be more broken because of money. I hoped that one day we could find a common voice and heal the wounds in our hearts. Along with the changes in the family, the company also entered a new phase. Since taking over the management, I began to implement comprehensive reform plans. One of the top priorities was to improve the working environment, increase transparency in management and strengthen the trust of shareholders. I recruited reputable financial and corporate governance experts to support me, and organized capacity-building training sessions for the staff. I also spent a lot of time researching new projects, looking for opportunities to expand the market and innovate products. I wanted not only to maintain Mark's legacy but also to develop it to new heights. That change quickly created a positive effect in the company. Many employees began to feel more excited and committed, and business partners also trusted and cooperated more actively. However, not everyone was happy with my presence. Some longtime shareholders and senior managers who were previously close to my husband's family tried to oppose me, trying to reduce my influence in important meetings and decisions. They thought I was not experienced enough and should step down to make way for more deserving people. Those situations made me feel frustrated and pressured many times. But I know that is the natural law of change. People are always afraid of new things and often resist it in many different ways. I am determined to prove that an ordinary woman with determination and hard work can absolutely make a difference. In addition to work and family, my personal life also experienced great changes. The days of grief after losing Mark were gradually replaced by new feelings: confidence, independence, and inner strength. I began to spend more time for myself, find joy in old hobbies and explore new things. I learned to love myself instead of just being someone's woman. I also gradually opened my heart to new relationships, although I was not ready to enter another love, but I knew that I could be happy and complete without having to rely on anyone else. One highlight of that journey was the genuine friendships I made with several new colleagues and friends. They saw me not as just Mark's successor, but as a person with their own story and values. These people helped me to be more stable, shared the difficult times, and looked forward to the future with me. I also realized that forgiveness and letting go are important parts of the healing process. Although I cannot forget the hurt and betrayal, I learned to look at things with compassion and calm. I did not want to continue to live in hatred and anger because that only hurt me. This led to a major turning point when I received a handwritten letter from Elaine. The frank and sincere words touched me deeply. She admitted her mistakes and expressed gratitude for my love for Mark. Although it wasn't a request for forgiveness, the letter was the beginning of a new relationship between us. A fragile but hopeful connection. I kept the letter carefully as evidence that despite differences and conflicts, humanity can still heal and connect. It was also a reminder that, in life, nothing is absolute and sometimes, we need to learn to accept and forgive in order to move forward. Gradually, the relationships within the family also changed positively. Karen gradually reduced her aggressive social media posts, replacing them with small acts of respect. Daniel. My story about a woman who was abandoned and despised by her husband's family and finally took back everything that belonged to her, may make many people feel indignant, sympathetic, or even controversial. I understand that not everyone agrees with the way I did it, with the decisions I made. And that is when we should stop, think, judge, and ask important questions about justice, emotions, and humanity. What do you think about my reaction when I received the will? Should I ignore the coldness, even hostility from my husband's family to keep the peace? Or should I fight to protect my legitimate rights? Do you agree with the way I fiercely protected my assets? Or do you think that it only caused more rifts in family relationships? If you were me, what would you choose to do? Forgive and stay silent, or be fierce and protect to the end? This story also makes us think about the line between assertiveness and stubbornness. When interests and feelings are intertwined, how can we maintain balance? What do you think about putting personal interests above family love? Should everyone fight for justice, or is it sometimes necessary to compromise to maintain harmony? Have you ever experienced the feeling of being abandoned or looked down upon in your family? So, what did you do to overcome it? Share those experiences, because each story will make the picture of life more diverse and rich. Looking at my husband's family, what do you think about the hostility and power struggles they show? Are they simply greedy and selfish, or could there be deep wounds that we cannot see? Do you agree that money is often the main cause of family breakdown? Or is it a lack of understanding, jealousy, and selfishness that makes family relationships tense? Do you think my way of dealing with those reactions is correct? I choose to stay silent, work hard, and prove myself through actions instead of arguing. Have you ever faced the choice of staying silent or speaking up to defend yourself? Which do you think is more effective? The story also shows us the role of women in the family and society. I am looked down upon not only because I am a daughter-in-law, but also because I am a woman. What do you think about the position of women in the family, especially in relation to property and power? Do women have enough voice and power to protect themselves? Has society changed much today, or are there still many prejudices? Do you see my becoming the head and owner of my husband's family's property as a liberation or a challenge to tradition? Do you believe that women can both preserve family values and assert their own position? The reactions from social networks are also worth discussing. When Karen used social media to attack me, it created a strong wave of public opinion. What do you think about the power of social media in shaping images and creating social pressure? Have you ever witnessed or experienced cases of being misunderstood or attacked online? Do you think that social media needs to be controlled to avoid toxicity, or is it a freedom of speech that each person needs to know how to protect? Regarding forgiveness and healing, when Mrs. Elaine sent a letter admitting her mistake, it was an important turning point. What do you think about the power of an apology in healing family conflicts? Is forgiveness always necessary to move forward, or is it sometimes enough to just accept and understand each other? Have you ever faced family conflicts without knowing how to resolve them? Do you find it difficult to open up after being hurt? Do you think time is the medicine that heals everything? The story also raises a big question about fairness in life. Do you believe that good people will be rewarded? In my case, I received wealth, but at the cost of many losses. What do you think about that? I also want you to think about personal change. I went from being a hurt wife to an independent, powerful woman. Have you experienced any turning points that made you more mature? What helped you overcome difficulties? Regarding the true value of wealth and love, even with all my wealth, I still felt lonely. What do you think about the relationship between money and happiness? Does wealth bring lasting joy, or is it just a means? Do you believe that love and loyalty are the most important values? Finally, I want to ask you, how would you judge me? A strong wife or a broken one? Do you think I am too strict or have self-respect? Please leave your comments, stories, or questions in the comments section below. Together, we will discuss and understand more about the complex relationships in family and life. Thank you for taking the time to watch today's story, an emotional tale of love, hurt, and the fight for justice. If you find this video to be insightful or emotionally powerful, don't forget to hit the like button to let us know that you're with us and support Judgy Tales. Each like not only helps the video reach more people, but also serves as a great source of encouragement for us to continue sharing true, controversial, yet instructive stories. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, click the subscribe button now to become a part of the Judgy Tales community, where we listen, judge, and discuss everyday stories filled with drama that can't be found anywhere else. Subscribing to the channel ensures you don't miss out on engaging videos that are updated regularly every week, from stories of family disputes, broken love, to secrets and life-changing decisions. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you'll be notified every time we post a new video, so you don't miss a single story. Because on Judgy Tales, each video is more than just a story. It's a debate, a chance for us to reflect on right and wrong and share our own opinions. Your comments are also an important part of helping the channel grow and making the Judgy Tales community more connected and authentic.